a test to see if content is good or not for these things. So
no pressure.
No pressure. Welcome everyone. Thanks for having us here. I'm Ashley Cooksley. I'm the co-CEO of an agency called Social Element. I'm joined on stage by 3 other fabulous women. We have Tatiana Canessa, who is in charge of innovation for Johnson & Johnson. We have Aretha Yorke Sabeng, who is the marketing director for Garnier at L'Oréal, and my wonderful co-CEO, Linn. She's the Brit, if you were wondering. And yeah, so I'd like to pass it over to Linn to talk a little bit about what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, so actually this panel isn't about us as an agency, it's about social media. And the realisation and reality that you need a purpose to cut through in this current landscape. There's a lot of noise, and within this industry we couldn't consciously exist if we weren't here to make social better. So social is a mirror to society, but unfortunately at the moment it magnifies both the light and the dark, and I think you would be living under a rock if you hadn't heard about it in the news. So fake news, toxicity, mental health, and then most recently the ban on under 16s that's happening in Australia. So it's a very hot topic, and we wanted to pull a panel together with brands. People are leading brands at the moment, and really talk about how the last couple of years the digital landscape changing is affecting you, but then also touch on our responsibility, and then at the end we're going to wrap up. We've got a mission piece, a bit of activation for you to do. So I'm going to kick off with, I feel very loud. It's very loud. I'm very loud. Now I feel very quiet. So Tatiana, the first question to you, and I want to say thank you. We had a prep session and we realised that we could have talked for hours about this. So Tatiana, we're going to come to you first. And so very much back in the day it was always digital first, let's be digital first. And I feel like in the last couple of years it's been let's be social first. And the realisation is that social actually cuts through that whole funnel and can do so much more. And it's an incredibly powerful tool. As we've seen recently, it decides elections. Unfortunately, the UK's created riots, but it's also e-commerce is booming, and community is a very rich source for brand building. So tell us a bit about how social has changed, how you're approaching building your brand.
Does this work? Yeah, there we go. Well, the funny thing is that digital used to be, it is really loud, yeah, you're right. Digital used to be first, but now social, you know, like you can create your own, your funnel can just be social, you know, like this, you can do it all through social media. You can catch someone's attention, you can get the brand awareness, you can get to the end point of having the purchase. And that did not used to be a thing. I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know already. I think that there's been a huge shift in the way that we present products, and it's no longer the sense of like digital comes first, but actually social comes first. Social, the content that we put out there, the content that us as brands put out there, but also our content creators that our brand supporters put out there, it's what makes the brand, and that is a funnel on its own. And it's so amazing to see when brands actually embrace that and they take that as their main marketing, you know, social strategy, not so much like, you know, how it used to be, where like digital was part of the funnel, and then social almost like came in second.
Amazing. And then Aretha, we talked a lot about, so Garnier had a lot of success with some very big influencer campaigns and sort of social first activations. Tell us a bit about how this is sort of affecting how you're approaching your marketing and brand building.
I think, as Tatiana touched on, social is a full funnel. And you can go through the entire funnel from awareness, consideration, to conversion on social. So I think first I'm gonna declare that everything I'm gonna share here is my own personal view. So I am not speaking on behalf of L'Oréal or of Garnier. So that said,
I wanted to say Chatham House rules, if you know what that means, but we're being broadcasted virtually to, I think, over 300 people, so secrets might get out. But yes, absolutely personal opinion, which is incredibly important.
Exactly. So back to the question. The question is, how have we used?
I suppose for me, it's that how is social helping you build your brand to be more purposeful and valuable?
Oh, I mean, the first thing social has done, not just for Garnier, but for every brand, is to properly define the communities which have sharpened brands' tone of voice. In the past, when we did not have social or even digital as a touch point, brands just delivered their messages on linear and there was no form of interaction. We didn't have the opportunity to test how messages were being delivered. We didn't have the opportunity to test how messages were being perceived, because we just delivered the message during a TV slot time, and that was it. What social has presented to us is to have the opportunity to actually perfect the tone of voice, how we speak to our consumers, and to identify and almost now pinpoint the right consumer to speak to with the right messaging. And this can span across like all your touch points, and it can clearly be defined in your strategy.
Absolutely. That sounds great. So speaking of communities, so as a social media agency, we've been in social communities for 22 years now, which is actually before Facebook was born, and maybe some people in this room, but so we've seen it change.
Not me, I'm Gen Z, guys. I'm Gen Z.
I will hold my hand up as a Gen Xer, so, you know, power to the 50 plus in the room. But in terms of communities and developing communities, I think one of the things that social media has done is giving you an opportunity to, like you said, talk to people who are consuming messages about your brands. But, you know, as one of our big missions is to make social better. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the responsibility you have as a brand, how you ensure that you are listening to the community, that you hear the community, and then really importantly, how you're protecting that community as well.
I think when we had our prep session, I did talk about the fact that the word authenticity has almost become polarizing because everybody is slapping on everything to kind of demonstrate that I'm being true to you. But at the same time, we cannot step away from the importance of that word. And I think to your first question, having communities actually presents the opportunity for brands to be authentic, and that is ensuring that as a brand you stand for something, right? And you're very clear about what you stand for. What happened, or what I saw happening with brands, was that when we discovered social, we wanted to be everywhere. We did not even understand what each platform meant, how to use each platform, and what to do with these people that we eventually all of a sudden have. And when we talk to them, they talk back to us, and we don't have to even we don't have to do research to know what our consumers are thinking. It was just there on social. You put out a product, two people try it, and bam, you have feedback there and then. You can course correct in real time. So I think having communities as a brand, has really, really shaped not only how the brand delivers its message, not only, perfecting how the brand communicates, but it has also presented an opportunity for brands to learn and relearn and understand that as a brand we are polishing what we stand for, and we are ensuring that we are delivering our messages to the right people in the right tone, in the right settings. And then I think your other question was about our responsibility as brands. I think as brands, we play a big role in the boom of social media. Most of us here have experienced the change in the use of social media, but one of the big players who contribute a lot, especially when it comes to investment in this space, are brands. Because we buy media, and by buying media, we're investing in these channels. So for me, I think as brands, we have a responsibility to join the conversation that matters. I told you just yesterday, I saw in the news that suicidal rates for teenagers is becoming alarming. because of social media. And for me, my point is, it's rectifiable. We can do something about it. But then if nobody is talking about it, we're not able to identify exactly what we need to do about it. So as brands, I would encourage everybody here works for some brand, whether it's your own personal brand or you work for a big brand or you have a startup. We all have a role to play, and I think we should all join a conversation in ensuring that we create a safe space for all of us to exist in social, because it will only get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think that you also not only on the community front, but you touch on, safety. The community management, that's a term that for some reason I just stopped hearing a couple of years ago. Community management has not been as present because I think that, we as brands stop having a conversation with the other side. So we got used to it's one too many comments. We don't need anyone. We don't need to respond to this. We don't need, let's just automate it. And that's not a conversation. You're creating a community for your brand because those people resonate with your product, your brand, who you are, what you stand for. Being for your community to have a conversation between them and to share their experiences. We have, we've seen crazy communities out there. What about the Swifties? They're not just supporters of Taylor Swift. They resonate with so many brands that, are almost adjacent to that. And then on the safety aspect, we're all responsible. We as marketers, we're all responsible for at some point curating and maybe curating things a little too much. So then people got used to seeing that perfection, and then that leads to wanting that. Because if brands that you support, brands that you resonate with, they're striving for perfection, they're showing you this perfect image, you want to do that. And then one thing is when you have the education and knowledge of how much you take in, but sometimes as a teenager or a little kid, you have no idea what you're looking at. So yeah.
And I think there's a couple of interesting things here, but around the perfection piece, also even us and I've been brand side as well, that there's so much we can and can't say, and we were talking a lot about, for me, the founder-led brands that are on social that are really being successful are those that are very authentic, and they really are humans. They are powered by a human, they know who they are, they know their personality, they're a little bit messy, and that actually means that we can relate more to them, so I think that's a really, really valid point. I wanted to bring us back to, and again, generations, so we are all varying degrees of age, but we're talking about this, but also how we remember no online, we remember no internet, and then we've got my teenage, I've got teenage twins who are 15, and their whole lives have been lived through social. So just really touching on the future. So there's a lot of debate around the under 16s, and we were talking about, so from my perspective, I actually asked my 15-year-old, and she said, please, dear God, Mum, don't take that away from us. I'm a singer-songwriter, that's how I'm going to be famous, like Taylor Swift, that's how I reach out to people. My son games globally, so he's got a game that he plays with in France. So they're don't take that away from us, but maybe ask us so we can help make it better. Can I ask your sort of viewpoints? I know there's going to be a mix of personal and professional, but really, what does the future look like?
Just to level set, I'm Gen Z. But I do remember a time without internet. That's so weird. Yes, I hear you, and I think personally, I talked to people about the under 16 ban, and it was so interesting. I had so many different ideas from people. So typically, people who didn't have kids, they were like, no, we shouldn't ban it. We should just, increase the controls. And people who had kids, they were like, yeah, I think they should ban it. I do have an opinion. And yes, I have kids. Don't call the cops. I have kids, and I am pro-ban, but I am pro-ban in a frame, right? I think if I take a step back and I look at all the important decisions we make in life as we age, like voting, getting married, buying a house, renting an apartment, you need your parents to co-sign for you when you're not 18. If social media is posing such... Oh, it's Chris. Yeah, Chris. If social media is posing such life-threatening consequences for us as a society, then I think we really need to take a critical look at how do we contain these consequences and save lives. I think I am pro saving lives. Yes, granted, some young people make a lot of money from social media, from YouTube, from TikTok. Some people who are some under 16, teenagers, kids make a lot of money. All I'm saying is I'm pro-ban, but the frame should be in the same way that, you know, parents have a say when you're not 18 and we get to like be there for you. Let us be there for you on social media. That way, even though I feel like the biggest responsibility lies on the people who have created and managed these platforms, and they have a responsibility to make it safe, they kind of dissipate that responsibility and allow parents to actually see what is happening with their kids. Because as a parent, if my child is going through what they're going through, I want to be there for them. I want to be able to support them. That's it. There's also the tendency that some parents can weaponize this against kids. So it is very complicated. It's not as simple, but for me, I think the reason I will be, if we can find a solution to averting these life-threatening crises without necessarily banning under 16, I'm all for it. But for now, if we need an immediate solution, I would say either ban or put parents in control. So if you're not 16, you don't get to use it without your parents' consent, and your parent can have access to kind of like guide you through the content that you see. And then we have all these platform creators also have a responsibility of ensuring that these platforms are safer for these younglings.
100%. Tatiana.
Well, you know, I have a different point of view.
Which I love.
And following your logic, yes, I do not have kids. I am not pro-ban, so maybe you're onto something there. I think that putting all the blame to like on the platforms, I think that's not fair. Because also we've seen so many mommy blogs that have monetized a lot using their kids. So like, when is it the right time to actually give your kids access, or you use them to become a micro or a macro influencer? So I think that it's a combination of things. Because like, if you were to have there's, you know, sex ed happening in school, you can have the same thing for like a tiered educational program about social media. You know, in a like need-to-know basis. Like you're not going to explain the whole shebang at first, but like just like making them aware of, you know, what they need to know. It's also, there's a safety from like, let's say, a mental health standpoint, but also there's the actual safety from, you know, like, don't tell a stranger where you live, you know, like don't engage in certain conversations online, and that is a conversation that needs to happen in school with parents. And, you know, banning things, as we know, like we have wine right here, like that was banned at some point. Like it doesn't lead to not wanting it. It leads to wanting it more. So I think that education, like a tiered education, helps. You know, that would make things, you know, easier. But also, you know, like, the algorithm could change. The algorithm could, on the, you know, more mental health front, could, you know, let's say, reward content that is, you know, positive. Content that will not affect or impact someone negatively. And that's something that doesn't require a ban, but it does require companies, to have platforms to actually, like play with the algorithm a little bit more.
So I think, I know, Ashley, you had our favourite question, and then we're going to go quickly to my favourite thing, which is run meeting. Do you want to do, we'll bring some joy, and then we'll do the activation.
It's my favorite question, and it's actually my favorite interview question as well. So it's all about, making social better and how we can make it a more joyous place. And I like this kind of positivity, how we shine a light on that. So in terms of what gives you joy and inspiration from social media, could it be Pooches of NYC? I don't know. I have a lot of poodle stuff on my feeds these days. But what brings you joy every day when you get on social?
Personally, I do keep in mind, I'm on the innovation side, I work with startups, so I do love to see, people grow and rise. And for me personally, it's just seeing that growth, like just being like a fly on the wall. And it could be a startup, or it could be an artist that maybe they had like 2 viewers and now they're like blowing up. I do love to see like that transition. That brings me joy, because that is the happy side of social media. It's just like, doing what you love and sharing it with the world.
I love that. I do love the growth as well. I love to see like my favorite creator who had like 2,000 followers when I found them have like 200,000 overnight. But for me, 2 types of content bring me joy. One is comedy. I love to laugh, like laugh hard. So I love comedy. And another group of people that I love to watch are people busting myths and norms, people going against social norms. So it always intrigues me. And in my community, especially in my community, there have been lots of social conditioning. So, for example, if I find a creator who is trying to change the narrative in their own little way, I kind of get drawn to them. So I like people trying to make positive change in their own little ways as well.
I love that. So Jerry would be pleased. We've got our video 60 seconds. So some of you will have cards on your seat. So I think, and as I said, we've talked about this yesterday, and I can be up here all day talking to you. Making social better is an enormous task. I do believe the platforms have a big responsibility and have the funds and the capability to do more. But to make real change, I think the best way to do that is to ask the people. There's 5.6 billion social media users worldwide, and we really want everyone to think about how they feel. So we've launched a campaign, the B2C campaign, and it's to find out how people really feel about social media and get people talking about it, because I think that's the first thing. Me talking to my children and finding out how they're using it and how they think and feel. So we're going to it's going to be Jeremy, run VT, and then we're going to ask you to please play the game, because it's going to really help us kickstart the campaign and share it as far and wide as possible. Use social to share it.
There are 8 billion people on Earth. 5.2 billion of us are on social media. Social media is a mirror to society, magnifying the light and the dark of humanity. It's connected to every part of our lives. But would we be happier if social media didn't exist? Would we have found that community? Would we have learned that new skill? Would our business have grown? Would we have stayed in touch? Love it or hate it? We have a chance to make it better for everyone. Imagine if all 5.2 billion of us had a say. Imagine if the platforms listened and finally acted on what was best for us. Imagine if all it took was a swipe to share how we feel. It's time your voice is heard. It's time to make social better for everyone.
Yes, you've got that, everyone. That's fantastic. Everybody, that's a massive round of applause for Aretha.